Obviously, QuakeCon is a great time to do that with the first-person shooter genre being at the forefront here. But the purpose of this talk over the next little bit is kind of to discuss not only the evolution of the genre, but the evolution of the industry over the last couple of years and get some insight from the people here that obviously have a lot of experience and insight into that very topic. So let's introduce them, shall we? Julian Roby is right next to me here, who is working on Dishonored, the newly announced game coming out from Bethesda. He's at Arcane Studios, and he's worked on BioShock and Arx Fatalis and Brink. And despite the name of his new game, we are honored to have you here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Drew Murray. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped right over you. I saw Drew's beard, that beautiful beard. I totally jumped right over Mackie McCandlish, of course, from Respawn, who is here, who has worked on the Call of Duty franchise and has the interesting distinction of not being able to talk about his game today, which I'm a little upset about. Keeley breaks all the exclusives on our show. I need an exclusive. Are you going to help me out? No. Damn. Chalk up one for Keeley. Yeah. So next to him, obviously, is Drew Murray from Insomniac, who has lost a lot of sleep, I'm sure, over the Ratchet & Clank series and the Resistance franchise. Resistance 3 getting ready to ship next month, exclusively on the PlayStation 3, of course. So thanks so much for being here, man. We're looking forward to your insight. And I think you're actually the only one here who has finished your game. So everyone else actually should be working, and he's allowed to be here. Right?
I know. I still feel like I look more tired than these other guys, though.
Despite all that. Tim Willits is down on the end there from id Software. Thanks so much for being here, Tim. Obviously, Tim has been involved with huge franchises like Quake and Doom, and now Tim and the team are getting ready to unleash their rage on the worlds. Come October, the cross-platform game, Rage, which has been the talk, obviously, of Quakecon and is looking awesome. So we're looking forward to getting some insight into not only that game, but your perspective, your unique perspective here.
Yes. I'm on the end here because if my phone goes off and they find another bug,
Yeah.
I have to run.
I was talking to him before we met, and it was just literally check. You know, it's a hard job you got there, man. I don't envy you at this moment. So anyway, like I said, first-person perspectives is the name of this panel. And when they asked me to kind of come up with some topics for this, I wanted to do the exact thing that I mentioned, which is talk from their perspective about creating first-person games in this changing, shifting environment of gaming right now. So the first kind of topic is about hitting the mark and coming up with a concept for your game that you're able to know nails down a unique identity. The way we'll do this, guys, just feel free to jump in if you've got something particularly pertinent to say. But in terms of hitting the mark and creating, obviously all these projects are unique, but how do you know when you've achieved something? You're working on a new IP here with Dishonored, and when you set out to do it, what are the things that you're looking to establish that are going to uniquely identify this game in a very competitive landscape?
Well, I think one of the things specifically on Dishonored that we wanted to achieve is make sure on the side of the visual that when you look at a screenshot, you can instantly say that this is Dishonored because it looks very different from anything else, whether it's for the way the characters are done or if you look at the scenery, the way the scenery look, the architecture and everything. So that's the first part of the IP I think that we wanted to try to achieve to make it different. And I think the other thing too is specifically on the gameplay front. We wanted to make something that is first person, obviously, but something that is also different to play in first person because it's not only about shooting, but also about what the player can do in the game, how he can interact with the environment, how the AIs react to the player. So it's really about trying to define a moment-to-moment experience that is different from what you can play on other games, and that's also trying to get the player involved in what he's doing as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Tim, when I spoke with you yesterday, you talked about nailing down a game like Rage that has that id feel, as you described it to me. And I think that establishing that as a company probably is a huge advantage to know what your games are supposed to feel like and what people expect out of your games when you're creating a new product, right?
Yes, and it's very difficult as you and I tried to put it down into words yesterday what the id feel is. That spirit of an id Software game when you have your hands on the shotgun and you pull the trigger and that feedback. It's just it feels correct. And for us, having so Rage is very interesting because we're trying to appeal to people that believe in the id spirit and understand the id spirit, but we're also trying to branch out. So the second part of your question about expectations, and we've had to climb over lots of hurdles in what people expect. It's it's an id game. You need to have it needs to be a corridor shooter, and it needs to be kind of dark, and all brown. But it's so you have that group, and then you want to branch out and do some different things. We have the vehicle aspect. People are you putting cars in your id games. You're wrecking the id spirit. It is very difficult to appeal to your hardcore base and do something new while the industry and the fans are evolving and changing.
Drew, I know that I spoke with you about Resistance many times. Obviously, at the time that Resistance came out, the initial launching of an IP that is in a flooded first-person market, it's like, how is this distinguished from everything else? And you guys have a few kind of pillars for the franchise that you guys look to with the story, and then also the trademark Insomniac weapons and things like that. Talk a little bit about the development of that franchise and a little bit how you've evolved it to continue to remain unique.
I think we went with this alternate history theme that has enough familiarity that I think people can get into it quickly, but then has enough differences to stand out with our aliens, with the weapons, which Insomniac is known for from Ratchet and Clank, and then obviously in the Resistance franchise. I think with 3, we wanted to tell a more personal story. I think part of that was just a desire for us to be showing more of, the game's called Resistance, and the first 2 games were pretty military based, and you'd show up in these cities that had been overrun, and I guess whenever I personally think of like the French Resistance, I don't think of the military or like the action, although of course we do have a lot of, I think about like I think about being scared. I think about dark places and hiding out and whispering and being nervous and really being part of this almost the citizens army that is that's facing overwhelming odds and that you're not really ready for. And so I think we wanted to tell a more personal story in 3, and I've mentioned this in a couple interviews, but I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of us on the team, me, Marcus Smith, our creative director, Grant Hollis, our art director, a lot of us had kids during production, and I think a lot of us, we were reading, a bunch of us reading The Road at the beginning of the game, and all of us were kind of thinking like, what would it be like if this happened and you had your wife and a kid, and wanted to tell a more personal story because I think there are a lot of games, Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Battlefield, those guys do military really well, and I think we wanted to do something different that told a more personal story.
Mackie, obviously you guys are, like we mentioned, in a unique position here, launching a new IP that nobody in this room is really familiar with. Hopefully not, anyway.
A few of them. There's some coworkers in the
Okay,
audience.
great. So you guys know. But in terms of this IP, talk a little bit about now, obviously there's some expectations, there's pressure. I mean, people don't quite know what to expect, yet at the same time, how do you know this is the right direction? I mean, to me, to think about the fact that you guys coming, of course, off the story that you are and forming something here and having a blank canvas in front of you, how do you look and say, okay, this is it, this is what we're doing?
Well, we're definitely in a very unique situation where we can't really say anything specific because our game is not even announced. But when we started out, we wanted to start with a really clean slate, so we sat in a big room in a big circle, and each person talked about their most favorite games and also their biggest disappointments. And we used that process to sort of build a company game outlook. Like, what is it that we are striving for, and what are some cases where a game appealed to us in a certain way but then didn't pay off, so maybe we could pay that off in the future. And we found some really good stuff there. And then I'll also say that the way we know if it's going to be a success, I guess, or not, is really just, are we really excited about the game, and are we just dying to play it? So once we get the ideas there, which are there, then it's all about the hard work of building it so that we can have the game to play.
In the initial states of developing these IPs, guys, are there ever moments or have there been moments where you've gotten pretty deep and then you just scrap it? I mean, I'm trying to imagine, you know.
Yeah, we worked on a game for over a year and we scrapped it, the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I mean, it was going to be a cool game, and we just hit a point where, you know, this is not working. But luckily for us, you know, we were small enough. You know, John is flexible enough, and it takes, you know, it takes balls to throw a year away and start in something completely different. And you just have to follow your heart.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Resistance started as a time-traveling high science fiction game and ran that way for 6 to 9 months, I think. It was before I got there, but I've seen some of the art and cinematics and or little animatics that were put together. And they definitely went down that road for a while and then made a hard left or right turn or some kind of flew up in the air, I don't know, and ended up with the Resistance that we know.
Well, thinking of examples, I mean, I feel like some of the best games out there went through that process. Like Half-Life 1, they were down to a year left and they said it's not working, so let's scrap it and take the best of what we've done and figure out how to make a whole game around that. And projects I've worked on have gone through similar processes that I won't be too specific about.
Before the game you can't talk about, there were games you can't talk about?
Sadly, that's the case, yes.
What about with Dishonored? Were there points throughout the early development where, I mean, you guys spoke a little bit about the development yesterday, but was it a completely different concept than what we've been introduced to here at QuakeCon?